Hi and welcome back to a new video. In today's video we are going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2025, and if you're new here, hi, I'm Carol, and in this channel we talk mostly about books. In terms of what to classify a book as one of the worst books that I read in 2025 is above ratings is just how I feel about the book. If I have any strong feelings about the book, strong negative feelings about a book, then it is classifying in terms of the worst books that I read in 2025, and I decided to pick 10 different books. The first 7 books in this list, they are books that I have very strong opinions about it, that when I look at on my Goodreads red shelf, I have some feelings, I have some thoughts every single time I see them on my red shelf. And then the last 3 books that I added, it's more just the rating. When I look at them on my Goodreads shelf, it's not necessarily that I have very strong feelings, I just look at them and I'm like, wow, this was a really bad book that I remember really not enjoying it, and then I decided to add to this list just so we can complete the number 10 of the 10 books that I read in 2025. The first book on my list, and this was one of the books that I read right at the beginning of 2025, and I still remember exactly what it felt like reading this book because I absolutely hated it, and it's one of those books that I usually don't like to say bad things about because it's not very popular, but I initially got it for free on Kindle, and now it's no longer for free. I got it during like some sort of not Fix Your Kindle, Fill Your Kindle sales that Amazon occasionally has, and I got it many years ago. But it is Wrong Text, Right Love by Claudia Burgoa. This is a romance where we follow this woman. She is this very big influencer. I believe she's supposed to have 70 million followers, but even if she had 7 million followers, we are going to get to that. But basically we follow this influencer who she has around 70 million followers. She's very popular. She has multiple best-selling books, and at the beginning of the book she's going on a meeting with her publishing house, and she wants to change the concept of her book because she's not happy with it, and she's also going through some things in her personal life, one of them being the fact that she recently broke up with her longtime boyfriend with whom she used to live with, and now she no longer has a house and she needs to search for this home. But there's this little detail, I'm going to talk about it later on. It's just that I hate this book so much that I'm stumbling. I'm anxious to get to explain the part why I absolutely hate this book. But basically we follow this influencer, and then we have this other guy who there is a plot twist at the end of the book. But essentially our female main character, she moves to Denver, Colorado because her family is from there, and she's looking for an apartment. She can't really find an apartment that fits what she wants and that fits her budget being like between $2,500 and $3,000, because she lives not underneath, but she lives way below her means. She doesn't like, she's kind of like a Scrooge-esque character. She doesn't like to spend money on silly stuff. So she's looking for an apartment with a budget of around $2,500, $3,000 in Denver, Colorado, but she can't find an apartment in Denver, Colorado that she likes, that fits her budget. And by the way, this book I think is from like 2016, 2018. But basically her manager, who we meet, like from the first time we meet her, you can see that there is something sketchy about this manager, but she calls her, I think, stepbrother or her husband's stepbrother and asks him for a favor because her husband has 2 stepbrothers who are very wealthy. One of them is living outside of Denver, and she ends up renting this apartment, getting this apartment for her client, this penthouse apartment, very fancy apartment, for like $2,500. And so our influencer main character, she moves into the apartment. She meets her new neighbor who is the stepbrother of her manager, and he's very grumpy, but like she's just very grumpy. But things quickly change with this guy. I do no longer want to explain the premise of this book for you because I just hate this book, because this book was written in 2018. I was editing this video, then I went on Goodreads to have a little look on this book, on the exact year this book was published, and I'm editing this video, but I was saying, oh, it was published in 2018. It's worse than I thought. This book, according to Goodreads, it was published in 2020. This book was published in 2020, but it feels like it was published in 2018. and I feel like this makes me hate this book even more. And this book feels like it was written in 2018 in the worst ways possible. It's just the abundance of hashtags, the way influencer culture is portrayed, the way the characters the way the characters talk, the way the book is written. It doesn't feel like a caricature, but it doesn't feel like a cut of a very specific moment in time. It doesn't feel like it's portraying a very specific moment in time. It just feels dated. It's a book that already feels dated. And when it comes to why I hate this book so much, because I really hate this book. Whenever I see this book on my list of books that I read in 2025, I have really, really strong feelings about it. It's because, one, there is a plot twist at the end of the book that absolutely doesn't make sense. Second, one of the reasons why our female main character can't afford to find an apartment that she really likes in Denver, Colorado, it's because she apparently borrowed all her savings to her brother because her brother is planning on opening a business. So she borrowed absolutely every single penny that she had in her savings. So now she has no money. This is my brain every time I see this book on my list of books that I read in 2025, by the way. It's The Siren. But going back to the third reason why I absolutely hate this book, and I think it's the one that I hate the most, this book, the research for the book, where was the research for this book? Because I don't know the author, I don't want to offend the author, but either the author had no idea what influencer culture was, not only like what influencer was in 2018, because this book was published, I believe, in 2018, but the author either had no idea what influencer culture was, how much money an influencer that has 7 million, or in this case 70 million followers can make, or the paywalls an influencer like that can make, especially because our female main character, she's always working, she has multiple best-selling books, she's constantly posting on social media, she's constantly doing ads, she has partnerships, she has multiple sponsorships, she's the ambassador for brands, she's doing courses that we don't know if it is paid or not. But how comes an influencer with 70 million followers be this broke that they can afford a house to live in a city that isn't the most expensive city in the world, you might ask? Well, because there is a second plot twist in the end, which is a plot twist I saw from the moment we started to meet our female main character, because it's that obvious, and it's a plot twist that I'm surprised. Like, it's either the author doesn't understand influencer culture or how much money some influencers can make, or our female main character is incredibly dumb, which none of them helps the book, because this female main character, she just feels incredibly dumb. Truly. Like, her brain should be studied. Her brain is like no longer works. She maybe she fell on the ground and now she only has half a brain or something, because how? But basically, I'm going to tell you the plot twist because I don't want you to read this book. Sorry for the author. I have nothing against the author. But this book doesn't work. But the main plot twist is that her manager is stealing money from her. Her manager is stealing a lot of money from her. And that's why she can afford to leave, because the money that she's making, her manager is keeping it for her. The apartment that she's renting, she's actually... her stepbrother let her borrow the apartment for free, so she's also pocketing that money. All the software that our female main character is using for her work and that she's paying for, she's actually... her manager's stepbrother is one of the founders of the company, and he's letting the other guy is letting his family use it for free. So technically, our main character shouldn't be paying for the software because she's getting it for free, but because she's so dumb and she doesn't realize that there's something wrong, she's paying for a software that she didn't need to pay because her manager is basically pocketing her money. Like, her manager apparently is pocketing all her money, right? Because she has 70 million followers. She's a best-selling author of multiple books. She's constantly doing courses, posting, doing all sorts of partnerships, and being ambassador to brands, and yet she can't afford to live. Like, this character, it's so dumb, but so incredibly dumb. It's infuriating. Like, girl, don't you read your contracts? Don't you know how much money you're supposed to be making? Don't you know how much money your manager is supposed to be making? Don't you open your bank account? Also, why did you borrow all your life savings to your brother for a hypothetical business? That's just dumb. Sorry, this is not being a good sibling. This is just dumb, because the business doesn't even exist, girl. You're not even making money. You just gave him the money, and now you don't know if you'll be able to eat tomorrow because you gave all your money to something that is hypothetical and doesn't exist. For reasons that are unknown, you apparently don't read your contract. Your manager is a shitty manager that doesn't do anything. She's clearly just, you have like this weird sense of loyalty to this person who is shit at their job, who is lazy, and it's clearly not working your best interest. You are this super famous influencer with 70 million followers who can sell any book she wants, can sell any product ever, and yet you can manage to ask your manager to like get you out of a shitty contract you don't want to be a part of, just because they couldn't be in the city any day. They couldn't join a remote call with the company you're working at. Like, just so many things about the female main character just infuriates me. And then the male main character, he doesn't help because he's grumpy, and then suddenly he's like, blink, wow, he likes her. Where was the development? Where was the yearning? What is this romance? It seems like you blink and suddenly, wow, there's a romance that doesn't make sense. The male main character's personality seems to change overnight. And just like the romance in general, like, no, and this guy is a massive red flag, but like, the female main character is so stupid. I think she wouldn't be able to recognize a red flag if it was in her face. So, wrong text, right love. Like, what was this book? Also, apparently this is part of a series. I'm not continuing to the series. Absolutely not. The female main character just enrages me. Maybe she needs a brain transplant, and I'm trying to be nice. So let's move on to another book, because the first book, it rage baits me. That's a rage bait book. But now let's move on to another book, which is a little bit less rage bait, and it is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. This book is one of the most disappointing books that I read in 2025, because I had a lot of high hopes. I heard great things about this book. People that I trust their taste in books, I saw them raving about this book, saying, wow, this book is amazing, the writing is amazing, this story. So I went into this book with very high hopes. I've been wanting to read this book for many years, ever since it came out, and it started to get a lot of hype. When I saw it on the Kindle sale, because this book was always sold out where I live, it wasn't translated to the language of my country. The English edition, the original English edition, was always sold out. I saw it on sale on Kindle. I said, you know what, I'm going to get this book because I'm so curious about it. I didn't love it. So basically, in Boy Parts, we follow this photographer. She's kind of like a fetish photographer. She takes photos that are fetish, like it. They are very kind of explicit photos of men in compromising positions, and she plays with the idea of fetishes, and she also has this thing where she likes kind of like femboys of sorts, something like that. And not exactly her day job, but she works, her main job, the job that actually pays her money, is she works as a bartender at this bar, and then she has this fetish photography business on the side, and she also makes some money doing some questionable stuff, and the book already opens with our main character doing some questionable stuff and just showing how unlikable she is. And our female main character, she's supposed to be unlikable. That's a very important thing about the book, is that she is unlikable. You are supposed to be rooting for her. She's a drug addict, she's a bad person, she's a bad friend, she's cruel to people, she's extremely mean, she does things that are questionable, things that are criminal. She has so many secrets. You're not supposed to like it. And I don't have a problem with unlikable characters. I think unlikable characters can be done right. Characters that are kind of psychopaths and you being their heads, it can be done right. But personally for me, in this book, it didn't work. In one side, I really like the technical side of Boy Parts. I like the writing style, I like the storytelling. But in the other, I really hated our character. I hated being their head. It's not that they're only that this character felt unlikable. She felt so incredibly stupid and so frustrating in a bad way to be in this character's head, just because she would do stuff and I would be sitting like, girl, why are you doing that? I know you're supposed to be unlikable, but this is not unlikable. This is just plain stupid. You're going to get caught. What you're doing will have serious consequences to your life. And I know you're supposed to be unlikable, but what you're doing just won't work. This character also felt like one of those people that if she existed in real life and I was in the same room as her, she would do something, I would look at her, basically, all my opinions about this person would be on my face. The person would say, I'm offended, be really pissed with me, would hate me, would try to, get back at me. And then I would just be sitting there looking at them and they would be pissed at the fact that I just didn't like them, which might sound like, saying this on the internet might sound weird, but people that know me in real life, you know how I am. But I don't know, I just didn't like this character. And I have a feeling that if I met this character in real life, it's not that I wouldn't like them because it's an unlikable character, but this character would kind of hate me because they are just such, like, people say like man-child, but she's a woman, but still would be such a childish person that just more than likely just stupid and childish. And again, it seems like their brain was dissolved in some sort of mush that no longer works. And Boy Parts, I had very high expectations for it, but it was one of the most disappointing books that I read in 2025. Moving on to the next book on my list of the most disappointing, the worst books that I read in 2025, and this one might be surprising because I believe I originally gave it a 3.5 stars, but it is The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen. This is a romantasy where we follow, I think it's Lara and Aaron, and she is the princess of this kingdom, and her father raised Lara and all her sisters to become the assassins. They were promised to marry the king of this neighboring kingdom, this rival kingdom called the Bridge Kingdom, and basically they trained them their whole lives to be able to marry this guy and then murder him so they can take over the kingdom. And then Lara, she basically poisons all her sisters, she takes their place, and she goes on this journey to marry Aaron on the Bridge Kingdom. And when she gets there, she starts to quickly realize that one, Aaron is nice, second, that things are not exactly as it seems and not as her father told him to be. And when I first read it, I thought this book was quite meh. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. I felt like there was just so many things lacking on it. There was nothing that for me I absolutely hated, but there were just so many things that were lacking on this book for me that it just didn't work. And I know this is a very popular series, which it's one of the things that makes me confused. It makes me confused. And I don't know if this is something related to my age, because this book, I think it might be for like younger adults, while I might be a little bit past that, the age, the target demographic. I don't know if it is because of my upbringing, about where I grew up, the country I live in, or it's just like a me thing. It's just my reading taste, my book taste that just doesn't align with the Bridge Kingdom. But when I first read it, I thought it was meh, but I knew it was a popular book. So I also had a feeling, oh, it is a me problem, and maybe I should continue reading this series, give it a time, and then maybe read a sequel, because there must be a reason why this book is popular. But now, it's been a year since I read this book. And one of the main reasons why I haven't read the sequel, it's because the Kindle is super expensive where I live. For a Kindle book, for an ebook, way too expensive. The physical copy, it's also, every time I looked at it, it was way too expensive. And then I will look at it and think, do I want to pay this for this book? Do you think it's worth it? And my brain will always say, no, you didn't love the first book, and so there's no reason for you to continue reading the series. And then the more I think about the Bridge Kingdom, because every single time I would look at, I think it's the Traitor Queen, which is the second book series, I would start thinking a little bit more about the Bridge Kingdom, and honestly, I don't love the book. One part, I don't love the romance between Aaron and Lara. I feel like it lacked some build-up, some yearning. Also, I don't like Aaron as a king. I don't want him to be an asshole, but also he felt like he was a little bit too nice and too naive to be a king, and I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it that there wasn't someone stopping him. I didn't buy it why he would be the king and not his sister, because just Aaron, he didn't need to be mean, but he was a little bit too nice, considering he was living with the enemy, and even if he was falling for her, like, sir, please think with your brain and not with the third leg, because some of the things he does, sorry, what the outcome for that book was written at the beginning of the book, because Aaron way too quickly started to think with his third leg and not with his brain, and just being too naive and too nice. But another reason why, for me, Bridge Kingdom, just don't get it, and I don't like it. It's because it's supposed to be a fantasy novel, and I don't understand the magic system in this world. So essentially, the Bridge Kingdom, which is this island where we are at, like, what is the magic? I think there is, like, it might be a mild spoiler, but there is mention of transparent ink, and that reminded me of one of those pens. I don't know if they still exist, but I think I respect, because I was looking for a photo for the invisible ink pen from when I was a child, just to find out it still exists and it's still for sale, and it sounds super fun. But I'm no longer a child, so I don't think I will be getting it, because why would I want an invisible ink pen? But you know what? Lara and her family, they will love the invisible ink pen, which is for sale. So also not magic at all. But I remember when I was a child in the 2000s, there used to be these pens where you would write it, and then you couldn't see what you wrote, but if you press a button and there was a little laser, and it would show what you wrote. If you pressed the laser over the parts where you were writing with your magical pen, it would show what you were doing, your drawings, your writing, something like that. So for some reason, whenever there's like invisible ink, that's what it reminds me of, and I don't think that's anything super magical, because this used to exist in the real world, at least in early 2000s when I was a child. Another reason why I don't get it, it's because, again, what's the magic system? There is this invisible ink, and then there is nothing. Like, oh, so Aaron's grandma does these potions that help cure people, and it's like, what, medicine? Medicine exists in real life. So medicines is the magical system in this world. And then the Bridge Kingdom is painted to be this magical place. But when you think about it, it's just a tropical forest. And I don't know if it is because I live in a country with a very big tropical forest, where you turn on the news and you're probably going to see the tropical forest, where you study the tropical forest in school. where you can actually go and visit the tropical forest. For me, this just doesn't sound magical. Maybe for people that live in a place that tropical forest is such a foreign concept, and where like snakes and just tropical weather is such a foreign concept, might sound magical. For me, there's nothing magical about it. It's just a tropical forest. And then the neighboring country is a desert, and that also happens in real life. There are multiple places where one side is like tropical forest, and the other it's kind of like this desert-like land. So also like what other magical system might there be? What other magical element might there be to this story? Neighboring kingdoms beefing and having like fighting with each other? Like this happens all the time in real life. And in history this happens all the time. That's literally a good chunk of human history involves neighboring countries and neighboring kingdoms beefing with each other and going to war. So like what is magical about the bridge kingdom? The bridge, so engineering exists in real life. We also have bridges that go across large paths of water. We have tunnels that goes underneath the sea. You know, you can get a train from London and then it goes underneath the sea and then you can get to Paris. So engineering is a magical system for the Bridge Kingdom. Another thing that I also think doesn't help the Bridge Kingdom is that nowadays, whenever I think about the Bridge Kingdom, the island story takes place, I think about the Snake Island in Brazil. And if you don't know what the Snake Island is and you're scared of snakes, please don't search it, because essentially the Snake Island is an island where humans are prohibited from stepping foot at, because there are so many snakes in that island that if a human steps foot on the island, it will quickly become snake food. And for some reason, the Bridge Kingdom just reminds me of the Snake Island. I think because of the island element, the tropical forest element, the fact that there are a lot of snakes in this kingdom, and also to that also it only makes me think about how not great their defense system is. Their plans for defense not great, buddy. Aaron, please go study. Go look at better ways to defend your country, and please stop being so nice and stop thinking with the third leg. Think with the brain, please. But basically, like, maybe if they just started growing, like, breeding snakes and turned the Bridge Kingdom into a snake island, you know, if one of the enemies started to come, you just throw a snake at them. Throw a snake. The snake does the job. It might be a better option in terms of the defense plans for the Bridge Kingdom. But overall, I don't like the Bridge Kingdom. It's supposed to be a fantasy. I don't like the romance and the fantasy element. Because I don't understand the fantasy element. If you read this book and you understand the fantasy, please explain to me as if you were explaining it to a toddler. Because I truly, from what I remember, I just can't understand what is the fantasy in this book. Is it really just kingdoms beefing with each other and tropical forest and tropical climate? Because sorry, this is not fantasy, this is real life. This exists in real life. And if you want to experience it for yourself, you can. You actually can experience tropical climates and tropical forests. Just take the vaccines and beware with the mosquitoes. But moving on to the next book on my list of the worst books that I read in 2025, and I'm trying to keep this one brief because I feel like I've been talking for a while now. And also this book. I actually had a whole reading vlog where I was talking about the book, but I talked so much shit about this book that I kind of deleted the reading vlog, and I said I'm not going to publish it because I was talking just so much shit about this book, and this is a not a very popular book. It's also indie published. It's not the sort of book I would like to be talking shit about. But in my opinion, being indie published is not an excuse for the book to be bad. But I'm talking about the next book on my list of the worst books of 2020 that I read in 2025 is Love Like Water by Dee Malone. This is a romance that follows this young woman who loses her job and then she gets a new job as the tour guide for this company that does tours in this small town in the north of the United States. And one of the things I remember about this book is that I believe they drive a bus that has a giant fish on top of it, which doesn't help because a giant fish on top of a bus, it doesn't sound like sexy romance, it doesn't sound romantic. Now all I think about is like the fish stand or at a farmer's market or the fish store, not a fish store, I don't know the name in English, but like the store where you can buy fresh fish so you can eat it, that kind of store. It just all I can think about is the smell of fish. But another reason why I don't like Love Like Water by Dee Malone, it's because there's supposed to be a romance. There's no romance. We spent the beginning of the book getting to know the characters, then the main characters they meet, they bicker, and then I don't know, they get together. There's no build up, there's no yearning. It's just like you blink, they are fighting, you blink, they are together, they are in love with each other, and that doesn't make sense. The guy gave me the creeps. He not only gave me the ick, I think he's creepy, and it didn't help that he was her boss. And there's no romance. It's a romance with no romance in it, so I didn't like Love Like Water. But now let's move on to the next book on my list. The next book on my list of the worst books that I read in 2025 is also a book that at the time I gave like 3.5 stars. But now when I look at it on my red shelves, the more I look at it on my red shelves, the more I dislike this book. And this is actually a book I read not very long ago. And it is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is a classic sci-fi novel. It's very popular, but we follow this man and like 7 different people. No, it's like a group of 7 people. And they travel to this far road called Hyperion because there's something called the tombs that are going to open, and the tombs are very important for some kind of religion. And when the tomb opens, this mysterious god, which is supposed to be like the god of pain, he will come out and he will kill everyone except for the chosen one, and the chosen one will get their wish granted or something like that. And in the story we follow the story of each of the 7 characters, why they joined this group of people, why they're traveling to the tombs together, what wish they would wish, what is the wish for this mysterious god. And this is a book where the concept I really enjoyed. The execution I really didn't. It just felt so slow, and there were just some little things about this book that started to get on my nerves, and I just didn't like it. And then I learned some things about the author, and it put things about this book into perspective, and I just didn't like reading this book. Every time I look at it, I get reminded why I didn't like this book, what are the things that annoyed me about this book, why this book didn't work for me. So Hyperion is one of the worst books that I read in 2025. I can look at it and think about one positive thing about this book, except for there is a nice premise. The next book on my list is one that is another book that rage baits me. It rage baits me hard. And it is Tell Me How You Hate Me by Kylie Mel. So the story behind this book is that basically this book has been showing up on my Kindle For You page, my Kindle homepage for months and months and months and months, and I was really curious about why this book had been recommended to me. So I decided to pick it up. I started doing a reading vlog where I was trying to read books that I never heard anyone talking about it, and I decided to start with this book because I was just so curious about this book that kept showing up on my Kindle homepage. Tell Me How You Hate Me follows 2 figure skaters. They are kind of rivals. They are pair skaters. At the beginning of the book, they both find themselves... We love the noise of the big city. But going back, at the beginning of the book, they both find themselves without their skating partner for different reasons, and their coaches decide to pair the 2 together so they can compete and try to get into the Olympics. Nice premise. And this is supposed to be an enemies to lovers story, but also kind of a second chance because they had a one-night stand in the past that didn't end up well. How to say? What can I say about this book? First of all, this book felt so American, but not in a great way. Reading this book, it felt like an extremely bad Hallmark movie. It takes place in this small town, which I don't understand why this book in specific with this premise would take place in a small town, but the name of the small town is extremely bad Hallmark movie, American, very bad Hallmark, I think Hallmark is American, right? Every time I think of Hallmark movies, I think of the United States because we don't have Hallmark in my country, and every single Hallmark movie I ever watched takes place in the United States. But basically, it felt like the name of the town was very cringy, and so many things about this book that I didn't like. The characters, the main character, sorry, he's an asshole. He's not nice. A female main character deserves so much better than that guy. He's truly an asshole to her for absolutely no reason, I guess, because he likes her, he has a crush on her, and he doesn't want to have a crush on her, and it's like, what the hell, guy? Are you 12 years old or 30 years old? Because what do you mean you are an asshole with her? Because you have a crush on her and you can't help yourself because you have a crush at your best friend's sister. God help me. And there were so many things about the book. I feel like I need to say that I only watch figure skating competitions. I watch snippets of figure skating competitions during the Olympics. I'm not really a fan of figure skating competitions, but even I know that figure skating competitions, how they find their their notes, instead of the name, their scores, figure skating competitions doesn't work the way it's portrayed in the book. It's just so wow, that's not how it works. That it was shocking. There was a scene in a plane, and the plane scene didn't make sense to me. First of all, the female main character was complaining that the nearest international airport with a direct flight from this small town in the United States to Germany was 20 minutes away. Where do you live? Please tell me where do you live, because I live in the big city, and the nearest international airport with a direct flight to Germany in my city, it's close to me. It's in my city. But also, it's way more than 20 minutes to get there during a regular time. What do you mean you're complaining that the nearest airport is 20 minutes away? And when they were talking about the flight, about how she gets the female main character only flies first class, but she couldn't find a first class ticket. And then I was thinking to myself, how much money do these people make that they fly multiple times a year first class from the United States to multiple different countries in Europe, and I assume maybe Asia and other countries to compete. I was looking at plane tickets from the United States to Germany. Do you have any idea how many ads for Lufthansa trying to sell me tickets to Germany I have seen in the past months ever since I read this book? Because it was multiple ads. And it doesn't stop. Lufthansa keeps insisting on sending me ads and say, come to Germany! Book a ticket with Lufthansa. No, I'm not booking a ticket with Lufthansa. Nothing against Lufthansa. It's just that I was searching for tickets to Germany because of a book. Because I needed to confirm the price of the plane tickets, of a first class plane ticket from the United States to Germany. And let me tell you, it's very expensive, and they don't even come from a city that would be near these characters. And thinking financially, I don't think it makes sense for these characters to be able to afford to fly multiple times a year internationally on a first class seat, unless they are making an obscene amount of money, which, considering they are figure skaters, I don't think they are. I don't know how much money a figure skater can make, but I have a feeling it's not much more than what a star football player, or if you are in the United States, what a star soccer player would make. I don't think it's much more than what Messi would make, or what Neymar would make, or what Cristiano Ronaldo would make. how much money would art characters making that they can afford their life, because they also apparently live like in lavish houses and this luxurious lifestyle, and I'm like, how? Did they win the lottery? How? Like, I tried winning the lottery in the United States. It's not easy. How can they afford this life? And then there are other things about these characters, that especially the female main character, that she says, and I'm like, I feel like we would hate each other if we met in real life. There are things that this character is saying that makes me wonder some things about the characters, about their values, what they believe, what they think is right and what is wrong. There's this little thing sometimes, like a sprinkle of something in the background that just makes me wonder. And I didn't look up the author on the social media, but like nothing against the author, but also I kind of am curious to look up the author on social media because I have so many questions. And also the romance, dude, the guy is an asshole. This is the male main character. He doesn't feel like a romance hero for me. He feels like the evil ex-boyfriend that the female main character is running away from in the beginning of the book, and that the male main character at the romance novel, the hero, will go and he will hate him and then he will punch him in the middle of the book to defend the honor of the female main character. The hero of this book doesn't feel like a hero to me. He is an asshole, and I don't like the female main character, but she deserves better, because girls, if you find a man that treats you this way, run away. This man, dude, I just hate this book. And I think I might finish that reading vlog, but I definitely put it on pause because of this book. Now that we are done with the section of books that I have strong opinions about and some that do rage bait me, we are going to talk about the last 3 books on my list of the worst books that I read in 2025. And they don't necessarily have very strong opinions about it. I just, every time I look at it on my read list on Goodreads, I just really didn't like them. And all I can think about, wow, that was a disappointing book. The first one on the list is Icebound by Meredith Trapp. This is a hockey romance where we follow a 33-year-old goalie who one day he goes on a lift ride, and he basically falls in love with his lift driver, who is like 22 years old. She's like 11 years younger than him. And at first I was going to say at first it was fine, but no. This book didn't feel consistent. The vibes of this book, at times it was light, fluffy, and then in others it was dark. I didn't like the male main character. He gave me the ick, and then he gave me the creeps, because the guy was just obsessed with the age gap thing. But at the same time, he was too obsessed with the fact that there is an age gap, and he thought there might be a problem with the age gap. And at the same time, the guy was too obsessed with the age gap and worried the age gap might have a power imbalance, or there might be problems because of the age gap and this relationship might not be right. He also wouldn't leave the girl alone. Like, sir, choose. You're either thinking you shouldn't be with the girl because she's much younger than you, or you are with the girl. You can have both. And this mental talk being this guy's head was just so annoying and tiring, because like one time reading about him, thinking about the problems of an age gap, great. 2 times, okay. Now when every other thing in this guy's mind, every other phrase in his POV is about it, sorry, that's tiring. And also, 33-year-old star hockey players that don't have a history of injuries, they are not retiring at 33. And in this book, they act like it's abnormal that 33-year-old is still playing. But a quick Google search. Just ask your best friend, Google, will tell you that star hockey players without a serious history of serious injuries probably won't retire at 33. Another one of those moments where we just need some better research in romance books. Also, there is a side character that is supposed to be like the goofy funny one, but he's just sexually harassing the women in the book. The things he says is just crossing the line, honey. Just crossing the line. The next book on the list of books that I honestly just don't like. It's First Like Wings by Ashley Austin. This is a very popular book, and this is a thriller where we follow this woman. She is a conman. She works for this like conman company. Of course, it's not legal, but she works for this guy. I think it's Mr. Smith, something like that, and she's a con woman, and she's the middle of this job when suddenly this other con woman shows up at her an event where she's with the guy she's trying to swindle right now. And this woman is basically, she has her birth name, she has her original story, her original backstory. Like, this woman is impersonating her, and she's trying to figure out what's going on. And honestly, I didn't like this book because one, I could predict like 99.9% of the plot twist of this book, which already took the thrilling part of the thriller element, but also like, honestly, I just didn't like. If figuring out a plot twist ruins the book, I don't think it's a good book. Because I usually don't care about spoilers. I like spoilers. So if having spoilers ruins a book, for me, this means this is not a good book as a person that likes spoilers. But also the fact that this is a thriller and I managed to figure out 99.9% of the plot twists, it's not great. Sorry. And then the last and final book on my list of books I just didn't like to read in 2025 is The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. This is a romance where we follow, I forgot names of the characters, but she's the twin sister from the bride, he's the brother from the groom. They don't get along, and then during their siblings' wedding, everyone except both of them get food poisoning, and including the bride and the groom. And the bride and the groom, they have this honeymoon that is unrefundable, so they send their siblings to the honeymoon in order for them not to lose in order for them not to lose the trip. Of course, the only little detail is that one, these characters, they don't like each other, and two, because it's a honeymoon, they need to pretend to like each other. And at the beginning of the book, honestly, it was a fine book. It was just a meh romance. It was a solid 3 stars. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But it was fine. And then there was the third act conflict. And stares into the distance. The third act conflict ruins this book for me. Girls, if you, or also guys, anyone, humans, if your partner does what this guy does to a main character in The Honeymooners, maybe it's better for you to not get back together with him, especially if the groveling, it's the groveling that is in this book. The third act conflict completely ruined it for me, because why? The male main character just ruined everything. Now I hate him. Thank you. Hello, it's Carol from like 5 seconds later, because I was reviewing the footage I saw. I forgot to talk about this book, because that's how much I hate this book that I completely blocked from my head, even though the name was written on my little list, which is written on my little notebook, which is right in front of me. That's how much I hate this book. And basically one of the worst books, if not the worst books. In terms of what, like, from a subjective standpoint, of a reading day standpoint, the worst book that I read in 2025 was The Power of Darkness, or if a Claw is Called the Bird by Leo Tolstoy. This is a play. It isn't supposed to be really long, and I hated it. But I hated it to the point where I was already predicting myself breaking out in hives while I was reading this book. I was crawling on my skin in not a good way while reading this book, because I couldn't wait to finish this book. And basically, in The Power of Darkness, we follow this young woman. She's married to this older man in like countryside Russia when Tolstoy was alive, and her husband, he's kind of Scrooge. He's not a great person, and he might be dying, and then the wife might be having an affair with the guy that works with him on his farm, and that's the setup for the play. And the thing about this book is that I have a love-hate relationship with Russian classics. I think the first Russian classic I ever read was War and Peace, which was a crazy thing to do. I read it years ago. I love the storytelling. I love the writing. I love the technical elements of this book. But that book is just so sad. It just doesn't work with me. And that's my problem with Russian classics. Every single Russian classic I've read so far, I like the technical element, but it's just so sad. It doesn't work for me because it's just so sad. It makes you depressed. I feel like the people in this book, they would have a blast if they met something called an antidepressant, depression medicine, psychologists, psychiatrists. They will have a blast because these books are so sad. And in some ways, I understand why these books are so sad, especially something called War and Peace, which is a book where one of my main problems with the book is that in a book called War and Peace, there was too much war and not enough peace. But one of my main problems with Russian classics is just that they're so sad. And in some ways, I understand. If you see at the history of Russia and also the weather, you understand. Like, probably there is also an element of there's a lack of sun situation going on, lack of vitamin D situation going on. But my problem with The Power of Darkness, it's the same problem I have with every single Russian classic I ever read so far. Too depressed. The technical side, it's amazing, but the story is too depressing for my taste. So. And yes, this is the list of the 10 worst books that I read in 2025. Which ones were yours? Did you read any of the other books or any of these books that are on my list? Do you like any of these books? Please try to convince me to like them. And if you read The Bridge Kingdom, please explain to me the magic system as if you were explaining it to a toddler. So yes, this is it for this video. If you liked it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and I hope to see you with another video very soon. Bye!